Well, good evening again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Positive Plug, a channel that is dedicated to highlighting the positive things that happens in our lives and around our community. We have a very special guest with us this evening, so call a friend and let them know Positive Plug is once again on the air, and you're in for a treat. Brother Jaunnelious Murry, welcome and thank you for being here this evening. He comes to us with a wealth of knowledge. There's so many facets to him. But I understand that you worked in the prison system for some times, and this is why I want you to speak to the younger generation of your experience in the. I understand you work as a correctional officer?
Correct. I was a correctional officer.
Correctional officer. I want you to speak to that to the young people because we seemingly have so much of African American youth that is ending up in the prison system, and I wonder whether or not you could speak to that, give us some ideas of what's happening in and around the prison, and maybe we might be able to stop some of our youth from heading in that direction. So I want to ask you right off the bat, what did you do in the prison system when you worked there?
Well, I was a correctional officer, so basically it was my duty to make sure the inmates didn't hurt themselves, hurt anybody, or hurt my fellow correctional officers. So I played a lot of different, roles as a correctional officer, a lot of different facets. But yeah.
How long did you work there?
A little over, maybe like 2 years, 2 or 3 years. That's all I can stomach.
Why was that all you could stomach? Speak to that. What do you mean? Was it bad? Was it good? Was it life-threatening? Why that was all you could stomach?
I mean, it's not a typical job. If anything, that one thing that I can say, it was one of the worst jobs I've ever had. It was a horrible place to work, and even though I wasn't incarcerated, at times it felt as if I was incarcerated. I mean, they had something like mandatory overtime, so you be in actual prison for 8 to 10 hours, and it's time to go home. And hey, you can't go home; you have to stay another 10 hours.
How did you get hired there? What was the hiring process? How did you end up?
It was a very rigorous hiring process. You had to go sit through a civil service exam. You had to watch a movie, take notes on it. Had to take a written test. And you had to take a physical test. And they had to make sure that you weren't like mentally insane or like troubled. You had to go through a lot of stuff. And then once you did get hired, you had to actually go through an academy. So we went through an academy for like, I think it was 3 or 4 months or so we spent in the academy.
I am laughing because, ladies and gentlemen, with that rigorous requirement, I know I'm already crazy. I couldn't get that job. What was your first day in the job like?
Well, the first day, after the academy, we had red tags. So basically we couldn't touch anything or do anything. But then we graduated to green tags, like our badge was green, so we can actually do stuff hands-on. It wasn't just like following behind watching. But my first day, the officer, a seasoned vet, had me the keys, was like, go open up the cells. So the way that it was set up at my particular prison was an L shape. So it was upstairs, downstairs. It was upstairs, downstairs, and the guard sat in the middle. So I went over to the left side, up top, first door that I opened up. The guy was standing at the door, and that should have alarmed me right there, but it didn't. But as soon as I opened this door, and I said, it had to be like 6:15 in the morning, 6:15 a.m. And I said, time for breakfast. Breakfast, go ahead. He just came out swinging, full force, all just straight out the gate.
Tell me the truth. What did you do?
Well, in the academy, they taught us all kind of like techniques and ways to resist, but like all of the training went completely out of the window, and it was like I went straight to like I was on the street fighting. So I assisted him to the wall. I assisted him in the air a few times and placed him on the ground gently, as the report said.
Gently, I know you. I know you.
Yeah. And once he hit the ground, he like all resistance stopped. So like, and I cuffed him up and like put him back into a detention cell. So I mean, it was just a rough first day. You don't think you're gonna get attacked on your first day at work. It was crazy.
You talk about the prison. What was the cells like? Is it actual prison or?
Oh, it was a prison, and it's crazy. Like because as I went into the prison and I seen where the inmates were living, I'm like, how can anybody live like this? You can literally stretch your arms out from side to side Lean a little to the left, you touching the wall. Lean a little to the right, you touching the other wall. That's how small the cells are.
Was that like 6 by 6 or 8?
Something like that. I'm not sure, but like if I did this, I could touch one wall and I could touch the other wall. It was a little bit longer on the other way, but it was horrible. And sometimes you'd have to share that cell with another inmate, so it would be 2 people in there on bunk beds. Horrible.
What was the facility? What was the thing that was housed in the jail?
Like, I mean, of course, the toilet is right there, so when you use the bathroom, you're using it right in front of the other inmate. And there's a bunk bed, so it's 2 beds and the toilet. Sometimes they have TVs, depending on which cell they're in, but that's it.
What type of inmates was housed in your particular prison?
Well, at my specific prison, it was the I don't want to say mentally ill, but prisoners with more issues, like they had to take medication, or like they were on Thorazine, or just like mental illness of some sort, stuff like that. But we had a lot of regular prisoners too, but we had a lot of mental ill prisoners as well.
That is kind of strange. Are you actually saying the mental, the insane, so to speak, persons was housed in the same prison as the regular folks?
Yes, right next door to each other, sometimes in the same cell. So it was something called the Thorazine shuffle. They would be so high or doped up off medication or Thorazine that they couldn't walk, and they would just like shuffle along really slow. It was common. You see it all over the prison.
That speaks to people leaving prison and coming out, and don't you think that would lead to some form of drug addiction? Why are we...
Absolutely, but I guess it was the form, because we did have nurses on staff, so they would come and get the medication, but the medication was like so strong, and they would just be like completely out of it. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I am thinking on the line that if you, regardless of whether or not you have a nurse and staff giving you medication, if you get to the point where you're actually saying you witnessed them and they was all doped up, hardly able to walk, that to me doesn't sound like a pretty thing.
No, it was horrible, especially when they started attacking the officers. Horrible.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why they kept them so heavily medicated?
I believe so. I think it played a major role to keep them calm, high off medication or whatnot, or sedated in a sense, where they can function with other inmates as well as the officers.
I understand what you're saying, but to me, that's not functioning without an inmate if you're doped up.
This is accurate, yeah. It was a crazy place.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Brother Murry, and we're going to take a short break. We want you to stay tuned. We'll be right back.